Hi, and thanks for joining us here at the table. Today with me I have Shona, welcome.
Hi.
Mary Ellen and Rachel, how are you ladies?
Really
Fantastic.
well.
I gave you a special welcome because I haven't seen you in ages.
I know, it's been ages.
Yeah, it is good to have you back. Well, coming up in today's show, we're going to be chatting to Josie Pratt. She started an organisation for women who are trying to leave domestic violence situations. And should the age 24 still be considered teenage years? But to start with, in the 60s, it was the miniskirt that shouted female liberation and empowerment. But recent fashion trends are seeing a convincing move away from the revealing clothes and towards longer hemlines, higher necklines and a hidden silhouette. Modern fashion is tipped by Thomas Reuters to become a $450 billion industry by 2019. That is phenomenal. Let's start out with actually what is a modest fashion industry, Mary Ellen?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. I'm actually surprised that this has taken off so quickly. Basically, it's a rejection of the current trend, which is to show as much leg as possible and to reveal as much skin as possible, you know, these unrealistic standards that we have for women. And it aims to cover up as much skin, well, not as much skin as possible, but to cover up your skin without compromising on fashion. So that's the aim of it. And it can be for many reasons. It can be for, it's really taken off in Indonesia, which has a high Muslim population, and other religious denominations have also got on board with it. But it can also just be because women think it's empowering to wear more clothing, and so you can adopt it for that reason as well.
See, women used to think it was empowering to wear less clothing. And
Interesting, right?
Well, some women did.
Well, yeah, again, just depends on how you see it, I suppose.
So,
Yeah.
I guess empowerment is in having that choice to be able to decide, but not just that. To say that within modesty, you can find something that's really sleek and fashionable. And probably in a lot of Muslim countries, maybe they've already felt this way. They probably have already felt like they have this corner on fashion. When I've lived in the Middle East, the women there are very fashionable.
Yeah, well, they said in Indonesia the women spend up to 80% of their income on clothing, or their disposable income on clothing, which was pretty huge. And I think that's why it's taken off in Perth, especially Perth, Australia, Western Australia. The fashion industry over there is really taking advantage of this modesty thing because they're a close exporter to Indonesia. So they can, if they can, I think it's make up 0.0000001% of the industry, they're still making millions of dollars. So it's great.
But don't you think it's a good thing that that it's out there, that we can start dressing a little bit more modestly?
well, we always could, couldn't we?
Well, I don't know.
It might not have been fashionable, but we could.
I remember a couple of years ago, there was a thing about, little girls' clothing in Target, how it was getting shorter and higher and less sleeves and everything else, and there was a big outcry about that. And I just think even women's clothing sometimes is not very modest for some of us.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember having to go to second-hand shops to get shorts that were long enough to cover up my undies.
And you look at some of the girls today with their shorts that sort of don't cover very much, and I think, well, I have boys, and so I'm always very conscious about what girls wear and that boys. Yeah.
Do you think it feels nicer, though, to sort of cover your body a bit more and not necessarily feel the lofty judgments from others?
Yes.
Well, I will say that what I enjoy doing is being able to go outside and wear a scarf over my head because I don't have to do my hair.
I'm hearing you, sister.
Exactly. So if that's going to come in trend in fashion, I do it anyway. But I think women will feel more empowered because they see more people doing it. So they feel like it's more acceptable and they don't have to just meet the standards that they see in a magazine. So
I think also being a Christian, it's really awesome to see that this is a trend because there's more options, as you were saying. And like the Bible says, not to adorn your outward body with, jewels, and not to worry about what you wear, and that God looks at the heart, not on the outward appearance. And so the fact that this is becoming more of a trend is empowering because it allows me to kind of live out my faith a little bit more.
Modesty is a matter of the heart, really, isn't it? I actually like what Victoria Beckham said about the looser silhouette. She said it puts power back into the hands of the wearer rather than the observer. Do you agree?
Yes.
Well, I think I really love what Shona said because I think growing up as a kid, I never thought of it from that perspective. You're saying as a mom of boys, you see it from the perspective of your boys just ogling or maybe feeling like they can
they can't
have to.
They can't help it if it's stuck out in front of them. It's there to be looked at.
Well, time will tell if this is a phase or if this is just another sort of, money-making exercise. We'll see. We're going to hand you over to Mandy now. She's got some makeup removal wipes that she's making. Take a look at this.
These super easy, quick DIY face cleansing masks are perfect for removing makeup when you're on the go. They're nice and easy to travel with, and there are no chemicals in these whatsoever. So to make our natural facial cleansing wipes, you will need 2 2 cups of distilled water, 1 tablespoon of Castile soap. We're going to have half a teaspoon of glycerin. This helps to keep it all together. Half a teaspoon of vitamin E oil. 3 tablespoons of liquid coconut oil or fractionated coconut oil. And then some lavender essential oils. So all of these ingredients are just going to get mixed together. Super easy. Let's get started. We're going to start by putting in our 2 cups of distilled water into a mixing bowl. Let's add in our Castile soap. Now this is going to give it its cleansing properties to help clean our skin and remove makeup. All right, next we will add in our liquid coconut oil. Gives beautiful moisturizing properties to our skin. And we need the liquid version because we don't want this mixture to congeal and get thick in the cooler months. Now we're going to add half a teaspoon of glycerin. So glycerin actually has really great moisturizing properties as well, which is perfect for our skin. Next is our vitamin E oil. I love vitamin E oil for your skin. It has so many wonderful benefits to it. I like to put it in almost everything that I put on my skin. And lastly, we have our lavender essential oil. Now this is optional, so I'm going to add about 10 drops of that in there. But I love adding lavender essential oil to anything skin related because it has such great healing properties. All right, we're just going to give that a really gentle mix through, mostly so you can't see the drops of essential oil or vitamin E oil anymore. Now, I've got these cotton pads here. So when you're buying cotton pads for this, make sure you get the really good quality thick ones. If you get the thin ones, they're just going to fall apart on you. We don't want that to happen. And also I've got these really nice little jars to keep them in, and these also make really beautiful gifts. So I'm just gonna fill my jar now with my cotton pads. And then I'm just going to pour my mixture over there until all of my cotton pads are wet. Make sure you're squishing them down too. We want to make sure that gets all the way through to the bottom and all of these cotton pads are nicely soaked in our mixture. Very simple, natural, homemade cleansing wipes. So when you're ready to use them, simply pull one out and you're good to go to clean away any makeup from your skin to leave it nice and clean and fresh. Hope you've enjoyed this DIY. Let us know on our Facebook page at The Table TV Show if you try this and what you think about it. We would love to hear from you.
Well, country music artist Brian White said you never really grow up, you only learn how to act in public. Well, could that be the case for the current generation of adolescents? Vogue has reported that a group of researchers from the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne want to change the teenage years from 10 to 19 to 10 to 24. That's a big gap. Do we really need to be doing this?
I don't know that we need to be doing it, but it is interesting because the Royal Children's Hospital of Australia has actually said, as you said, that it would be good if we change the age from 10 to 19 to 10 to 24 because kids in this age are starting to engage in less adult behaviors. So they're getting their driver's license later, they're getting more degrees, so they have more debt, they're not able to get into employment as quickly. I can see all the skepticism on children's faces.
Going like this before.
Get him out of the house.
They're living home too long.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so they're not participating in doing the things that people were doing in other generations, and they're not getting married as quickly, they're not having kids as quickly, because having kids will make you grow up very, very fast.
Yeah, it does. I was going to say, our grandparents' generation, they finished school, they got married, and they sort of
they
grew
were
up
married
quickly.
in their early teens,
Yeah.
some of them.
But there was no Instagram to scroll all day, and there was no online shopping to be done. Like, there's better things to do.
Oh, here come the millennials. Roll out the red carpet.
And the violin while you're
But
there.
you know what's so funny is they're saying that the smartphone is one of the reasons why
Yeah,
kids
exactly.
are taking longer to grow up because they're living a virtual life at home. So they're, on social media, they're doing everything virtually,
So
in their
because
house.
this is a behavioural thing, though, does that warrant a change in classifying those adolescent
No.
years, though?
I think it's a little bit bizarre to lump 10-year-olds and 24-year-olds in the same
Yeah.
category. I mean, they're on
difference.
completely different wavelengths. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's necessarily so much a developmental thing. I think that an 18-year-old, depending on the 18-year-old, is relatively mature. But I would say that it's
Some
more of a...
18-year-olds.
Okay, that's what I said. Depending on the 18-year-old. But at the same time, I think it's more of a practical consideration because, I mean, people can't afford to move out and have kids and buy a house at age 24. People, we're still on our parents' medical insurance up until the age of 26 because it's unaffordable. And, as you say, smartphones. So I think it's more of a practical thing as opposed to a...
Well, look, I
don't want to be a teenager.
I don't want you to stretch the teenagers out either. It's about time the teenagers got out and got jobs and got working and started being a bit more resilient.
Many of them are going to school longer. So by the time they go to uni or they have to do professional education as well, sometimes people don't finish till 24, they're still in that professional mode of...
Get a part-time job.
Yeah, you can still grow up, you can still volunteer, you can still sort of do all of those things. The only thing besides the behavioural that this article sort of referred to that to me gave it any warrant or credibility is the fact that our brains don't sort of finish developing in those adolescent years until around 24, 25.
Yeah, but that doesn't justify them stretching teenage life out.
No, because we've already brought it back down to 10 from 13. So, and that's because kids are going through puberty earlier now. So that's the reason for that.
I think it's a semantic issue. Like teenager means 13 to 19. It's got the word teen in it. Call it the developmental years or the dark years or something.
The dark years. My mum always said it was like a tunnel when kids go through those teenage years, especially
I
for
can
boys,
relate to that.
until they come out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one.
I think we have to give them a little bit of grace, like help them grow up and give them the means to grow up, but still giving them a little bit of grace.
Don't be helicopter parents. Maybe that's where. Maybe it's not our fault. Maybe it's everyone else's fault.
Look, I'm the helicopter parent. We're gonna stop bagging on the millennials and we're gonna hand you over to Gia and Olive. They are in the kitchen. Today they're cooking some Greek lentil soup. Have a look at this. It looks absolutely delicious.
So we are going to do something traditional, something I grew up doing. Actually, my grandmother and my mother used to make this. This was a staple in our house during the winter. And you always knew when my father was in trouble because my mum would cook this for dinner because he hated it. And it's Greek lentil soup. And we call it fakes in Greek. Say fakes.
Fakes.
Fakes. So we actually call this fakes. And yes, so when Dad would come home and we had fakes, we knew Mum and Dad were having a bit of a tiff, okay? So Greek lentil soup. We start with 2 tablespoons of oil. It's medium-low heat because you don't want to burn the oil. Okay, can you give me the onions first? Okay, so what they do is they put some onions. It's a very simple recipe. And in Greece, we're going to put potatoes in this one. Potatoes is not something they usually put in this dish.
Carrot.
It's a peasant soup. Not yet. Can you give me the garlic? And you just cook the onions out until it's a little translucent. Can you guys have it? Can you see it? Now, if you don't like using any oil with your cooking, you could just put a little bit of water down to fry off your onions. You only just need to fry them off a little bit because once that's done, you just put all the ingredients in and let it cook out. This soup is awesome. Oh, what are you doing there? Looks like you're not a chef anymore. Looks like you're a doctor.
I am a chef.
Are you? What are you going to make with that syringe? I have a feeling it's going to tip everywhere. Okay, so I fried off the onions and a little bit of garlic, 3 cloves of garlic. You can put 2 or 3 and don't mince the garlic. Make sure there's a few bigger bits in it because that's what really makes the soup. Okay, I'll put the carrot in. And it's supposed to be 1 cup of carrot. It's a forgiving soup, so you can cut the carrots however roughly you want to cut them. Chop them up into like rough cubes. The carrot, I'm going to put the potato, just a cup of each. And with the potatoes, you just make them into cubes as well. Like I said, the potatoes is not traditional in this dish, but it really makes it hearty. So if you're feeding your family, they're going to eat this soup and they're going to be full with a little bit of nice bread on the side. I use a can of tomatoes, diced tomatoes. In Greece, they would just use just a tablespoon of tomato paste, which I use as well just to give it some colour. Gives it a nice dark red. I like putting the tomato paste in it as well. It just gives it more flavour.
And here we go.
The diced tomato. Yummy soup. Do you think that looks good? Look at that. It already looks good. We are going to put 2 tablespoons of oregano, or you can use like marjoram and thyme, any sort of European herb, that Mediterranean herb. And 1 cup of the dried brown lentils. Now, if you like, you can rinse them really well because, you know, people don't like having lentils for certain reasons. And we use, these are bay leaves. Now, not many people cook with bay leaves, but if you have a Greek background, you'll know exactly what this is because a lot of Greek women use it for
Does
soups.
everyone want some medicine?
I'll have some medicine in a minute, but hold on. Okay, so bay leaves, I just put 4 leaves in there. You remove the bay leaves before you serve it. So the bay leaves just help it while cooking with the flavours. This is 4 cups of water, but you need 6, so I'm gonna fill it up with another 2. Oh, check that out. See, that's how easy it is. You're just gonna let it cook out now until it's ready, until the lentils are nice and soft, and another 2 cups of water. Now we're gonna set this aside while we keep cooking, and we're gonna leave it on a medium-high heat, and then once it starts to simmer, we're just gonna let it cook until the lentils are ready, and then your soup will be ready. We'll show you what it looks like. So we're back with the Greek traditional lentils, the fakes, and they've been cooking maybe on medium-low heat for probably 35 to 40 minutes. And can you see how awesome that looks? Look at that. This is what they look like. Like I said, the traditional ones don't have potato and probably don't have the canned tomato in it, but it still tastes like traditional Greek lentil soup. And this is awesome on a winter's night. There we go, I'll just serve some up. And what they tend to do, so after you've served your Greek lentils, they have olives on the side, some Greek bread, like Vienna bread, and they use red wine vinegar. They put a tablespoon of that just before they serve it, and they mix it through like that. There you go. You have hearty Greek lentil soup. Enjoy.
Well, it's certainly getting a little cooler here in Sydney, so some hot soup sounds fantastic. Now, if you'd like to get your hands on some of those healthy recipes, we're actually giving away a little cookbook today. It's called More Nature's Superfoods. All you have to do is send us your details via email, your name, your postal address, and the name of the recipe book. Today's is More Nature's Superfoods to hello@thetabletv.com, or if you'd prefer to use the phone, you can just give us a buzz on 1300 300 389 in Australia or 0800 694 673 in New Zealand. Well, our guest today is a real-life hero. She founded and set up SMS Lighthouse, Single Mum Support, a place where mums in crisis can come and start a path to a safer life with the support they need for themselves and their kids. And that's not an easy thing to do. Josie Pratt, welcome to the show today. It's really good to have you here because it's a topic that isn't always discussed but needs to be. How prevalent is domestic violence? Because that's what we're talking about here.
Yes, unfortunately, there is a lot of it around, and I consistently here in Sydney are getting calls up all the time about the amount of women that are attempting to try and leave the situation or have no idea how to even do that. And so, yeah, unfortunately, it's a massive epidemic that domestic violence is for real.
So what led you to start SMS Lighthouse?
Yeah.
What got you going?
Sure. So my own personal story, really. I found myself in a situation where I was in a emotional and verbal abusive marriage, and what actually led to it was not even the fact that I was copying it all the time. It was the fact that my son at the time was 8 years old. There was an incident that broke out between him and his dad. He was consistently told that he was hopeless and he wasn't going to make it in life. It got to a point where he just lost his confidence, and as I would when these fights and breakouts would happen, I'd send him off to his bedroom. And this one evening when I sent him off, I went in about 5 or so minutes after, as I would always do, just to let him know that it wasn't your fault and to try and, I suppose, smooth it over.
Yep.
And on this incident, though, this evening when I walked in, I found my 8-year-old hanging from his bunk bed with a belt around his neck.
And confronting.
Yeah, that's right. For an 8-year-old to even think that, it was a real shock. And
So what did you do from
he
there?
survived.
Yeah.
Yes, so it was from that I ended up actually, I realised that was the wake-up call and I needed to get out. And so I ended up in our local women's refuge. But it was going through that place, which was an amazing place and really did give us a place to stay in order to move forward. However, what I recognised on the northern beaches of Sydney was there was a few gaps there where the support for single mums with children, there was, I just found that I had a fogginess of my brain because I was in what I call now crisis mentality.
Yeah.
I couldn't even see a way forward to fill out all the documentation and things that I needed to fill out to be able to move forward. And at the time, I was pregnant with my 4th child in this refuge. So I'd taken the 3 out with me and it was just far too much. But what I saw was that I remember thinking that I wish that there was one organisation that would just come around and just help me to work through the paperwork and not send me to a million other services to find out whether I was entitled to support. And so that today is what SMS Lighthouse is. I saw a gap in our community and that's what I've set up, a service which is a one-stop shop where women and children can come in and let us know as to what's going on. We work through the situation, we look at the priorities in her world and we give her the documentation that she needs to fill out with whatever other services out there. Rather than us sending her off, we actually now sit down and work through it all with her. So
because for some ladies that's just too hard. They don't have a car or they can't even get their head around what they need to be doing, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly.
So Josie, thinking back through your story, I wonder how frequent it is for children to experience the abuse along with the mom. We often hear about mothers experiencing abuse. Did you find that your children were also experiencing it, and is it common for
Definitely, and actually that's a very good question, Rachel, because my big question is domestic violence, does it impact children? And yes, absolutely it does. And I actually was a child brought up in a home of domestic violence, in violence and verbal abuse. And so what happened was when I actually we entered into my marriage is I was in exactly the same situation that I was in my upbringing. And so, but I thought it was normal. And so the same with my kids. And the wake-up call was not only the fact that obviously that incident happened that wasn't great, but I started to realise that I was trying to teach my children how to actually disassociate with what was going on, which really is saying that it's okay.
That it's normal.
And it's not okay.
So how do we break those cycles to
Right.
teach children who are in a family with domestic violence that it's not normal so that they can have a healthy relationship in that next generation?
Sure. I mean, the unfortunate thing is a lot of children won't speak out. And so if they have a parent, a mum or a dad or whatever that's literally buttering over it and saying that it's okay, there's not really any way that any services can get involved with that child, even a school teacher or anything like that. But really, it is about trying to connect with the kids, and if the mum or the other parent, because it's not always the father that's the abuser, but if that is the case and they are willing to teach their children that they can move forward and this is not normal, then I would suggest that they hook up to a service or some Relationships Australia or something like that for child counselling, because the kids do need to understand that it's not normal and it's not okay.
But by you walking away, I think you would have communicated that to your children.
Definitely. Now it's a totally different story. And that 8-year-old is now about to turn 21 and he is doing amazing. So, but we did tap into a lot of services for him to get some counselling, and I am of the Christian faith, and so our church really got around him and he got with some great male mentors that helped him to also realise that, you know, it's okay and I need to move forward.
Yeah,
So
what might be some practical steps for people, like that you can say to people today as they start to move forward?
I would say that, well, if you are experiencing specifically violent abuse, then you need to, if it's unsafe in the home, then there are a lot of numbers that you can call. The 1-800 RESPECT number is a big Australian-wide number that you can call and get some advice. Hook into any services that are in your area. Even these days with Google and the internet, we can actually find services in our area that are specific for domestic violence. Even just searching DV will actually help us to hook in.
Police?
Definitely the police. Yeah. I mean, if you are experiencing violence, then the police is the first point of call.
Yeah.
Definitely, yes, if you're in the middle of it right then.
Josie, I'm sure you come into contact with a lot of mums, and I'm just wondering, what is the main barrier preventing them from actually leaving a domestic violence situation? Is there a main cause, or is it just...
Yeah, I think what I have experienced specifically in Sydney is the means to be able to get out. A lot of women, obvious pride is massive. They don't want to actually admit that they're in this situation. However, when even stepping out in with clients that I've worked with, we've had many clients come through that have come and got advice, and then they realise, for example, if they've got a lot of material stuff at home and the kids are in places where they've got the internet, they've got all of their personal stuff, but now they've been moved out of the home and into, say, a tiny little unit. There's no internet, or there's less access to some of the material stuff that they've had in the past. It's a bit of a battle where the mum's like, I'm going to choose my battle here. And actually, do you know what? I think I'm just going to go back and put up with because of the stuff that the kids are struggling with. So that's a massive one. Like,
do you get any government funding to support this, or how do you financially stay afloat?
Yes, sure. No, I actually haven't tapped into government funding. It probably is there. I've been so busy, I suppose, with setting up the service and working with the clients that our funding purely comes from donations from our website. We have a donating page, but we actually do also have an annual fundraising dinner that we have had on every year, which is then business people coming in and hearing our story and maybe getting involved to support us. But it's purely all through donations.
So what's your website?
It's SMS Lighthouse. smslighthouse.org.au.
And do you have volunteers that come in and help in any way?
Yes, unfortunately, because our funds have not been big amounts, I have literally only just been able to obtain 3 days income myself. So I've been doing it all for voluntary. So the majority of all of our staff, well, not staff, but our people to work with our clients are currently voluntary because we just don't have the funds for income right at this moment. So definitely lots of volunteer opportunities.
And just quickly, you've come from a point where you could barely write out your own forms to this point. What has sustained you through that?
Oh, look, to be honest, I have a Christian faith, and I suppose the big thing is not only just being strong and connected with God to be able to reach out to people, but I have a real passion that I will love on people wherever they're at. So no matter what religion, no matter what race, and so to see women and children come into the service that are in a really crisis place and really can't see a way forward, or they have no hope in the future, to be able to even just practically help with some food or some clothes, or help with housing or court or things like that, and to be able to see them move forward and overcome, and then a year later see not only them out of that victim and poverty mentality, but really breaking free, is just an amazing thing to be able to see. And
yeah, look, Josie, what you're doing sounds amazing. It's a beautiful thing. I think our community is really lucky to have you doing that, so thank you for that. And thank you for joining us today. And as we just said before, your website is smslighthouse.org.au, so if you want to donate or volunteer, you can go and get in contact with Josie there and help out. Ladies, thanks for joining us today. As always, a pleasure. And keep the conversation going on Facebook. We'd love to hear what you've got to say. We will see you next time. Bye for now. Thanks.